What's going on, guys? Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I've been around this sport my entire life and I'm a huge historian of it. And I love seeing old races on YouTube and looking back, videos that I don't have. I've been going through some old videos that my dad recorded years ago. So I thought I'd take you back in motocross history, and this is the first one, the first flashback in motocross history. Go check out the 1987 Motocross Nations at Unadilla, New York.
This Moto World special presentation of the 41st Motocross the Nations is brought to you by Suzuki, proud to have been a part of the winning Motocross the Nations effort. Right on, Suzuki. Poison Power Reeds, serving the riders of the world. And by Dunlop Tires, unleash the Dunlop legend.
Hello, everyone. I'm Larry Myers. Welcome to this wet and drizzly special edition of Moto World. You can hear and see the rain is coming. We're at Unadilla Valley Sports Center, New York, for the 41st annual running of one of the most prestigious motocross events in the world, Motocross the Nations. With me to bring you the action from the pits, the professor of motocross, Gary Bailey. Gary, the conditions here are deplorable, but in the pits, the rider spirits are very, very high.
Well, Larry, this is the Olympics of motocross, and today we have 17 countries here. We have several national and world champions, and with this three-moto format where the riders have to run three 30-minute motos, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens.
Interesting indeed. The best riders in the world are here today. There are world champions and national champions, but as far as the fans at Unadilla are concerned, there is a champion among champions. In a professional motocross career that spans 11 years, Bob Hurricane Hanna has won more national and international motocross events than any other rider in the history of U.S. motocross. Along the way, usually brash and always outspoken, Hanna captured the hearts of motocross fans the country over, particularly at Unadilla.
Well, this race is a one-of-a-kind for me. I wait all year, every year for it, and I've missed it just a couple years from injuries, but this is one highlight of my year, and the track's always the greatest, and the spectators are undoubtedly the greatest. It doesn't even compare with any other race for me.
Surprisingly, it was not until 1986 that Hanna actually won at Unadilla. Every other year, the Hurricane came close, but something, a crash, a mechanical failure, something always put Hanna out of contention. Then, at the 1986 US 250 Grand Prix, Hanna delighted the Unadilla crowd with a win. Those same fans want another one here today. At Motocross the Nations, a team competition with three different riders on three different size machines, Hanna will ride in the 125 class aboard a Suzuki. Joining Hanna on the U.S. team, riding a 500cc Kawasaki, is Jeff Ward. Ward, from Mission Viejo, California, is a four-time U.S. national champion. Rounding out the team, five-time national champion Rick Johnson from El Cajon, California. Johnson will compete in the 250 class on a 250 Honda. We'll hear from Ward and Johnson as the event progresses, but now let's take a quick look at the competition. Two European countries figure to give the U.S. squad the most trouble. The Belgian team, with two world champions, George Jobet in the 500 class and Eric Geboers in the 250 class, will be extremely tough. Their 125 riders, Mark Belkanier, finished 9th in this year's 125 World Championship. The Dutch team is headed by former Unadilla winner Kees van der Ven. He's riding the 500 class. This year's 125cc world champion, John van den Berg, is riding a 250 for the Dutch team. Former 125 world champ Davy Streboes is riding the 125 class. In addition to the Belgians and the Dutch, there are 14 other countries, all with excellent riders shooting for the World Championship title that for the last 6 years has gone to the U.S. To win, they'll have to tame one of the roughest tracks in the world, Unadilla. When it's dry, it's tough and unforgiving. In its current muddy and slippery state, it borders on impossible. The first of three motos is about to get underway. In the first moto, 125s and 500s. The 250 riders watch this one from the sidelines. More about that later. The gate drops in the 41st annual Motocross the Nations. The World Team Championship of Motocross is underway on a muddy, slippery Unadilla track. And a pile-up in the first corner. The mud already has taken its toll. Hanna on the 125 and Ward in the 500 snuck through on the inside and barely avoided that tangle. Meanwhile, number 10, Kurt Lindquist from Finland on a 500 is the leader. He's followed by number 43, Van der Ven from the Netherlands, also on a 500. And there, number 45, that's Davy Strebos from the Netherlands. He's leading the 125 class. There's Bob Hanna. He's being passed by Joe Bay. And look at the roost from Joe Bay's rear wheel. It splattered Hanna from the top of his helmet all the way down to his chest. You have got to feel sorry for the riders on a track like Unadilla in the mud and the rain out here today. Earlier, the professor of motocross, Gary Bailey, talked to Jeff Ward about the riding conditions and how he would have to adapt his riding style to fit this Unadilla track.
Well, in the rain, the goggles are really important. Make sure nothing happens to that. So you keep those on at all times. And you gotta be a little more cautious because it is slippery. And being on a 500, I'd rather be on one than ride behind one. I know the roost is going to be really substantial.
And since the opening lap, Jeff Ward has been riding without goggles. That's Davy Strebos trying to pick up his bike in the slippery Unadilla mud. Strebos was the leader in the 125 class. That spill will shake up the standings. Here's the new 125 class leader, Jean-Michel Bales from France. We'll have the conclusion of Moto number 1 and more Motocross to Nations action right after this. Welcome back to Motocross to Nations. We're on the final lap of Moto number 1. Number 3, Bob Hanna for the U.S. is currently running 4th in the 125 class. Now, 4th place under normal circumstances is not too bad, but this is team competition, and the teams from Belgium and the Netherlands are putting it all together. The Dutch rider, Kees van der Ven, is leading. Correct that, he was leading. He was just passed by Belgium's 500cc world champion, George Jobé. Jeff Ward, meanwhile, the American entry in the 500 class, has caught the leaders and is currently holding down the number 3 position. As I mentioned earlier, in all 3 motos, the classes are mixed. Scoring, though, is separate. A rider's performance in the 125 class is measured only against other 125s. For scoring purposes, points are awarded equal to the finishing positions. First place is 1 point, second place 2 points, and so on. Individual points are totaled to determine the team championship. Belgian George Jobé heads for the finish line with Kees van der Ven, the Dutch rider, in tow. Finishing 3rd in the first moto will be the U.S. entry in the 500 class, Jeff Ward. There are still bikes on the track, but it appears the front runners have secure positions, so let's take a look at the top 5 in the 500 class. George Jobé, the 500cc world champion, was the winner, followed by Kees van der Ven in 2nd, and Ward, with a tremendous effort from the middle of the pack, finished 3rd. We have just received word the top 125s have crossed the finish line. Let's take a look at those results. Our prediction of a 3-way championship battle between the U.S., Belgium, and the Netherlands is right on course. Jean-Michel Bale from France took the number 1 spot, but look at the next 3 positions. In team scoring, after the first moto, Belgium with a 1st and a 3rd, and the Netherlands with a pair of 2nds are tied for the lead. The U.S. squad with a 3rd and a 4th are within striking distance, but will have to improve their finishing positions in the next 2 motos. Gary Bailey has worked his way to the American pits and is standing by with Jeff Ward.
Jeff, the track conditions are a little muddy out there, and you had to take your goggles off in the early part of the moto. Is there anything that you can change or that the other riders can do to help that situation?
Well, just the start I got, I happened to be on the outside, and they just like 5 riders just doused me, and it hit them so hard it knocked them down. So there's the only thing I could do to see where I was going was to jerk them down because I couldn't pull them back up, and I couldn't see anything at all. So from there on, I was just eating dirt and rocks, and I should have won, but I fell. And I'll get them next time, though.
Thank you, Jeff. Back to you, Larry.
Thank you, Gary. The second moto, 125s and 250s, are on the line with a start just seconds away. For the U.S., it's Rick Johnson, rider number 2 on the 250, and back for his second ride of the day, Bob Hanna on the 125. There goes the gate, and moto number 2 is underway. The rain is still coming down. The mud in that first corner is deep and slippery, but it looks like the entire field made it through. I believe both U.S. riders were close to the front. Earlier, we talked to Rick Johnson about the importance of being up front in a mud race.
I put a lot of emphasis on the start because if you're in front, you're the one throwing the mud. If you're behind, you're the one catching the mud. And I make a real hard effort in the beginning of the race to get myself to the front of the pack. And when I pass people, I don't mess around. I don't follow them and push them like I would on if it was just a you know, a tacky day where it's not a lot of mud.
And Rick Johnson is not messing around today. For the past 2 years, Johnson has been the dominant force in U.S. motocross, and the Honda Star taking the lead here in the second moto has shown why. That's Davy Streebus, the 125 rider from the Netherlands. He was leading the 125 class, but now Unadilla's favorite son, Bob Hurricane Hanna, takes over. That could spell disaster for the team from the Netherlands and be just the break the U.S. needs to move into contention for its 7th straight Motocross to Nations title. Bob Hanna and Rick Johnson are leading both classes. You can bet, however, that neither rider is overconfident. The best in the world are right behind them, and they know it. That's 250 world champion Eric Gabors from Belgium breathing down Johnson's neck. Gabors' teammate and first moto winner George Jobet has moved to the edge of the track to cheer Gabors on. Earlier, Gary Bailey asked Eric Gabors why he and Jobet place so much emphasis on this event.
Just look at the past and you know why. Because the Americans have been winning 5 years now in a row, and you know, you have to do something about it. If you have a fighting spirit, or if you are a real sportsman, you know, you don't let go. You try to improve and try to do better than the competition.
The team from Belgium is equal to the competition out here today. In the 500 class, George Jobet and Gabors goes down. The muddy Unadilla track has claimed yet another victim. The question now is whether Gabors will be able to hold on to second. John Vandenberg, the Dutch 250 rider, and Vandenberg bobbles. Bob Hanna moves into the number 3 position overall, riding a 125. The Hurricane is putting together an unbelievable ride. In front, it's all Rick Johnson. The U.S. champ from El Cajon, California, took the lead early and has ridden virtually error-free. Johnson and Hanna are in the driver's seat, but as we have seen so many times out here today, anything can happen. After the first moto, the U.S. team found themselves behind the Belgians and the Dutch. To get back into contention, they needed a 100% effort, and that's what they got from Johnson and Hanna. The rain's still coming down, but it hasn't dampened the spirits of this huge Unadilla crowd. They're cheering for Hanna, they're cheering for Johnson as they round every corner and every inch on every straightaway. And here comes Johnson to take the checkered flag in moto number 2. Johnson wins the 250 class and is the overall winner. Here comes Bob Hanna. He'll win the 125 class. We'll be back with the official results right after this. Stay tuned to the Nashville Network. Welcome back to Motocross to Nations. A dirty but happy Bob Hanna is still trackside long after the end of the moto. Let's look at the results of moto number 2. Only 2 of the 3 countries in contention for championship honors scored points in the second 125 moto. Belgian Mark Valkeniers finished 3rd, while the win went to Bob Hanna from the U.S. The Dutch entry, Davy Streebus, failed to finish the second moto. In the 250 class, 5-time U.S. national champion Rick Johnson romped home the winner ahead of world champions Eric Gabors and John Vandenberg. Before looking at team standings, let's go to the American pits where Gary Bailey is standing by with Rick Johnson.
Ricky, an excellent ride in the first moto when the pressure was on. You knew what you had to do, and you went out and you did it, and you and Bob both got 1-1. Now you're going into the second moto, the pressure's on again. What's the situation against the other teams?
Well, the way it is now, Gary, we have to get either Jeff or I have to pull off a first place in either class, the 250 or the 500, and we can wrap up the Nations Championship.
The best 4 scores of the 6 that can be earned by each country will decide the championship. In the first 2 motos, both Belgium and the U.S. recorded 4 good scores. The Dutch team has 3. It's still anyone's ball game. The 250s and 500s are on the line for the 3rd and championship deciding moto. Motocross to Nations, it's team competition. You can bet, though, that both Johnson and Ward are looking for individual wins to sew up the title for the U.S. And there goes the gate. The final moto of one of the most prestigious motocross events in the world is underway. Motocross to Nations. 51 riders competing for the honor of their countries. For most contestants, the muddy, slippery Unadilla track has been a nightmare. For others, like first moto winner George Jobet, the less than ideal conditions work to their advantage.
Because we're used to that in Europe, and I like a lot the rain, the mud, because it's very heavy, very technical, very slippery. So you need a lot of technique, more than speed. So that's what I like.
But right now, Team USA's Rick Johnson is liking it better than anyone else. The Honda rider from El Cajon, California, just a few moments ago, told us that if either he or Jeff Ward could win their class, then the U.S. would sew up its 7th straight Motocross Nations title. The pressure is on. If you think this is just another race, listen to what Jeff Ward had to say.
Probably the biggest thing maybe all the riders think of is that they have a really bad day. And, you know, things just don't go right. And if we lost the thing because of, specific rider having a really bad day, and which I think we're all spot on. That shouldn't happen, but bad luck strikes at the worst times, and that's what's gone through my mind. I know we have the ability to win, and I should really hate to lose it here in the United States. So it's got a lot of additional pressure than it usually has.
The pressure is on, but Johnson and Ward have ignored it. We have just learned that George Jobey has pulled off the track with several yards of track banners wound up in his rear wheel. That could spell the end of Belgium's championship hopes. The hopes of the Dutch team, however, are very much alive. Kies van der Ven out of KTM is leading the 500 class. In the 250 class, his teammate, John Vandenberg, is running second behind Johnson. In the final laps, Johnson will slow slightly to guard his lead. Vandenberg will throw caution to the wind. The Dutch team needs to win both classes for the overall championship. Jeff Ward, meanwhile, has closed slightly on Kies van der Ven, but does not appear to be making a 100% effort to catch the Dutchman. Earlier, we talked to U.S. team manager Roger DeCoster about team tactics, and I believe Jeff Ward's contentment with second place is what team tactics are all about.
If our team is overall leading, we will want our riders to be conservative, keep their position, try to do better without taking any chances.
For Rick Johnson, Bob Hanna, and Jeff Ward, the 1987 Motocross to Nations Championship is less than 1 lap away. For the 7th straight year, American riders have beaten the best the rest of the world has to offer. This year's win was possibly the best ever. It was on American soil in front of thousands of American fans. There's the checkered flag, and Rick Johnson, with his fist in the air, clinches the U.S. victory. Assuming the riders still on the track hold their present positions, the results of the final moto will look like this. In the 250 class, Rick Johnson took his 2nd win of the day ahead of John Vandenberg of the Netherlands. Belgium's Eric Geboers will finish 3rd. In the 500 class, it was all Kies van der Ven of the Netherlands. Jeff Ward, riding a conservative race dictated by team tactics, finished 2nd. In the competition for the World Team Championship, U.S. riders with 3 moto wins and a 2nd emerged victorious for the 7th straight year. In 2nd place with 1 moto win and 3 second-place finishes was a strong team from the Netherlands. Belgium, with a 1st, a 2nd, and a pair of 3rds, finished 3rd. We'll be right back with final words from the U.S. team. Stay tuned to the Nashville Network. Welcome back to Moto World. Just moments ago, the U.S. Motocross to Nations team victorious for the 7th straight years. They've had a chance to clean up. They look pretty good with clean faces. Bob, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a lot nicer in the pits than it is on the track. It was a rugged track today. I'm just glad it's over. You know, I had a lot of confidence in Rick and Ward, but I was worried about myself, and I squeezed through.
A lot of controversy, and Bob Hanna riding a 125. Make you feel awfully good to prove them wrong?
Yeah, I'm glad it's over. I was a little nervous all day long, and I'm happy the way it turned out.
And riding the 500cc motorcycle, Jeff Ward. Jeff, just a tremendous ride out there.
Yeah, it was really tough. Everybody had goggle problems. Their eyes are killing us right now, but we hung in there tough, and the track was the most difficult track I think I've ridden on, at least on a 500.
Jeff, both motos, early in the moto, you lost your goggles.
Yeah, it wasn't unfortunate. The first moto kind of got knocked off, so I took them down, and a race like this, you definitely want to have your goggles on. I was thinking on coming back and getting some in, but the competitors are too tough, and I can't afford to lose that many places, so I hung it out there.
Jeff, probably the most impressive thing this weekend was seeing the 3 of you work together.
Yeah, we always work together really well, and coming over to the races and put our heads together, and we are the best riders in the world, and when we do that, we come out winning, and that's what we've been doing for 7 years now. Gary, can you add to that?
Well, I don't know. Rick put in an awful fine ride today. Rick, you got a pair of moto wins that looked awfully good out there to me. I don't know. Is this race any different than the other motocross to nations?
Oh, definitely, Gary. Here you got everybody. They don't have to read about it in the paper next week. They're here to see it, and I had a little bit of a fear coming into this race. I was afraid that, you know, with the rain and stuff, that we might lose the championship. You know, we've held it for a couple years now. I was afraid if we lost in our home country, it'd look bad. But all the riders pulled together really strong. Bob put in a good second moto, and Jeff was consistent and strong all day, and we pulled it off.
It looked a little bit of a problem going into the second moto. The results in the first moto, the riders had some problems. Do the fans here at Unadilla make it any easier for you here than when you're over in Europe?
Oh, definitely. My first experience in the Trophy of Nations or Motocross Nations when I was in Sweden in '84, I got a real bad start, and one of the Swedish riders, Hansen, was behind me, and I thought the guy was on top of me the way the crowd was yelling at me and everything, but he was back a ways, and now I know how he felt. I had so many hands sticking out there for me those last couple of laps, and even during the whole moto, it puts you up on a cloud, you know, and this time will never be here again, probably in my racing career. Probably won't come back to the United States, and I'm just glad I could be a part of the winning team.
Well, congratulations. You got a pair of moto wins, and the team did a great job, and what can we say other than we're #1?
For Gary Bailey and the U.S. Motocross team, I'm Larry Myers saying so long from Unadilla.
This Moto World special presentation of the 41st Motocross Nations has been brought to you by Suzuki, proud to have been a part of the winning Motocross Nations effort. Ride on, Suzuki. Poison Power Reeds, serving the riders of the world. And by Dunlop Tires, unleash the Dunlop legend.